Welcome, everybody. My name is Laura Dempsey. I'm the Director of Military Spouse Employment Programs at Hiring Our Heroes. I'm also an Army wife of 15 years. We're very glad you could join us. For our spouses on the Hangout with us today, you're joining a panel to introduce one of our newest partnerships and one of the more exciting things we've seen for military spouses recently, and that's Blue Star Networks. Before we introduce our panelists, let me tell you a little bit about VetNet and the Google Hangouts that you're participating in today. VetNet is a technology-based effort to help veterans, transitioning service members, and military spouses find meaningful employment. It was created in collaboration with Google and the leading military family nonprofits in the country. You can think of VetNet as a virtual resource center for your careers on Google+. We'll be hosting panels and Q&A sessions and workshops via Hangout video chats like this. It's free and open to everyone, and the material will fall into 3 specific employment tracks. The first one is the basic training track, where you can get yourself squared away with resume writing workshops, connect to a database of over 1 million veteran-preferred jobs, and with military spouse experts around the country. The career connections track, we can participate in video chats with industry experts and get advice from other military spouses and military-connected people who are eager to share their career experiences. And the entrepreneur track, where you can take college-level business courses to help turn your own ideas into realities. Now I want to introduce our panelists for this Hangout, which is our very first military spouse Hangout, so I'm very excited about it, and it's a good one. Our first panelist is Vivian Greentree. She is the Research and Policy Director at Blue Star Families. Blue Star Families already has produced the great Spouse Resume Toolkit in partnership with Hiring Our Heroes, which helps all military spouses translate their volunteer experience into bullet points on their resume to market those skills to employers. And you can find that on the Blue Star Families website or at any of the Hiring Our Heroes events that we participate in with Blue Star Families. She's also the creator of Blue Star Networks and a good friend. We're happy to have her join us. Hello, Vivian.
Hello.
Our second panelist is Marcus Beauregard, who is the chief of the DoD State Liaison Office in the Office of the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Military, Community, and Family Policy. Marcus is one of a team of 2 people at the SecDef's office doing the yeoman's work on spouse licensure issues. They're going state by state to help improve certification and licensing challenges for spouses. Marcus is here to talk about the state of play in the career fields that Blue Star Networks focus on: healthcare, education, and entrepreneurship. Welcome, Marcus.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So the purpose of this Hangout today is to introduce you to the concept of Blue Star Networks, talk a little bit about what you as spouses can do within the networks and how to connect and engage outside of the networks, both with the public and the private sector, to improve your own career. And again, for the military spouses who are listening today, please feel free to submit questions as we go along, either on Google Plus or YouTube. If we don't get to your question during the live panel, we'll answer you within 48 hours. But now, without further delay, we're going to start the panel. Vivian, why don't you talk to us a little bit about what Blue Star Networks is, the purpose of it, and how it can help the spouses who are listening today.
Sure. Thanks, Laura. And thanks for having us on. This is very cool, and we're glad to be here. The networks have evolved from several projects that we're doing surrounding military spouse employment, starting with the Resume Toolkit, which all stems from our survey of military families, where we look at kind of a broad spectrum of things that military families are concerned about. Military spouse employment consistently ranks in the top 5. And as an organization with both the grassroots and also the policy side of the house, we were trying to fill in the gaps where we saw them and do the most with the resources that we had to fit into the spaces that we saw spouses needed. And so starting with your hiring fairs, we noticed from our survey that even though 81% of the spouses had said they had volunteered, and some quite significant portions of their time, we asked them if they were using that on their resumes, and 36% said no. And so it was a disconnect there, and that's where the Resume Toolkit came from. Once we had that in place, and we were working with the State Liaison's Office for state-level policy and certifications and licensing and the issues that military spouses face, we were constantly asking the same groups to come back to who lives in North Carolina and is having problems with this issue? Are there any nurses that this happens to, or teachers within different career fields? And it occurred to me that the best people to be organizing these types of things were within their own career fields, the spouses themselves. They will be their best advocates, but they just needed a platform regardless of geography, regardless of career field, regardless of where they were in their trajectory, if they were in school or out of school, or continuing education, if they were going back for certificates. So what we really want to do with these networks is three major things. One is the peer-to-peer networking. Some people just want to know other spouses that are going through what they're going through within their career field, and they want to know before they get to a state what they have to do. And that's amazingly helpful, and we've already seen that happening on the groups that we started. The second is to work with the DoD, with Marcus's office on the state level policies, with the people that are best placed to do that. And that's the people that live in the states that where we're looking to change the policy. And then the third, with the Chamber, and is why it's such a wonderful partnership, is all the resources you provide with career and professional development and mentoring, and this, all the resources that are at the tip of your fingers with being part of the National U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And so together, not everybody might need not all of the spectrum, but everybody will get something out of it. And we're already almost hitting 200 members per network when we just launched them on Tuesday. So I think that there's a little bit of a need there.
That's incredible. That was like your 1 month goal when you started, right? You got it into
Yes, that was our 1 month goal.
Well, I think that's fantastic. Can you talk a little bit more specifically how the networks can help efforts like Marcus and Ed's with the state liaison, or anybody really who's looking to make some changes to help some of these licensing issues for spouses? Because all of these networks deal with some kinds of state licensing or certification issues, right?
They do, and what we're seeing thematically, what a lot of people are starting to do the minute they get on there is they'll say, I'm a nurse, I live in New Jersey, we're about to PCS to Virginia, what do I need to do? Or you get the, I've been doing this, I want to, then you'll see a spouse that has already done that answer back, and so there's a lot of that just in between that can help the spouses prepare themselves.
Yeah.
But from Marcus's perspective and from the OSD's perspective is that they can reach out directly to the spouses. We had a lot of them that were ecstatic that they would get to hear from the state liaison's office today through this platform, just to get the overview. Yeah. So they're excited about that.
Mm-hmm. And how can they help? How can they help? I think you had mentioned, and Marcus had mentioned there, we're always looking for typical experiences from spouses to inform your efforts, right, Marcus?
Absolutely. I'll let Vivian go ahead and finish, and then I'll pick up and talk about the DoD State Liaison Office, how we work, and then how some of the things that spouses can do as part of this network help us in furthering this effort as far as passenger.
Sure. I mean, I would defer to Marcus to give his thing. I know everyone's really waiting to hear from him. At least all the spouses that we talked to that were really excited to get this kind of a broad overview of where the state licensing and certification process is, but also to have access to the best practices forums that you guys have produced, so that when they get asked by legislators in their state, well, what do you want us to do? They can say, well, here's a best practices forum, and to have access to that and to even know that one exists and make it easy and scalable per city and per state is very cool.
Okay. So, Lori, do you want me to go ahead and take the pitch now?
Sure. What's the easiest way to do this? Do you want to go by industry based on the networks? Do I start with healthcare, or?
I think probably giving an overall view of what we do in DoD State Liaison to start with.
Okay.
And sort of work our way down from there.
Okay.
First of all, our office, as Laura said, there's two of us here at in the Pentagon working in OSD on this issue. We also have 9 liaisons out in the States, plus a senior liaison who oversees their efforts. These 9 liaisons work directly with legislators and bring them issues such as spouse licensure. And when we have a legislator who's interested, then we provide them best practices. It's part of our effort to build a relationship, and then once that legislator introduces a bill, we help that legislator with statistics, information, and particularly with witnesses and hearing material that can help in improving that particular measure. So having a good relationship with the people who this impacts is very, very important. To start off with, just to make sure that we are working the correct issues. We have done some research. We have had to take the breadth of spouse licensure. Some states license 70 to 80 different occupations, and then the differences that exist in each state, and try to come up with common ways of impacting those occupations so that we could best present something to legislators that they could take action on. And our primary effort is to reduce the barriers that spouses have in getting their licenses transferred. So it's an effort in expediting their licensing process so that they can get to work faster. It's not taking away the requirements. States are still going to require that professionals meet their standards, and we believe, as they believe, that to do otherwise discounts the credibility of our professionals who are military spouses. So what we've done is we've crafted best practices that impact just about all occupations, with the exception of attorneys and teachers. So talking about your 3 areas, what we've done is both benefit healthcare professionals and also commercial occupations such as designers. I can't remember all of them right now, but it may be helpful if I just give you the 3 best practices in sort of a nutshell.
Sure.
What we have found is that endorsement helps considerably in getting somebody into a license quickly. And for those nurses who are on the line, much of what we've done parallels what you find in the nurse licensure compact that is now passed, I think, by 24 states. So, as I was saying, we try to make endorsement as easy as possible for military spouses. Oftentimes, military spouses have difficulty with endorsement because the recent competency requirements for endorsement are based on recent experience in the field, and if you've not had an opportunity to work in your occupation at your most recent assignment, that almost precludes you from getting an endorsement. So we work with states to allow you to use other methods such as continuing education, credits, perhaps an examination, to show that you have recent competency. In some cases, we've also got states to agree to use all forms of experience. And so if you have volunteer experience, if you have part-time experience, that counts towards your experiential requirement to get you an endorsement. We've also tried to make sure that those endorsements are expedited to the extent possible. And some states have used some innovative methods, which we have tried to promulgate to other states as a best practice, such as allowing a spouse to obtain a license endorsement based on their application if they write an affidavit saying that their application is true and complete, and that they are providing the necessary verification documents to verify that what they have put in the application is true. And they will then approve the license based just on that application.
Wow.
Others have chosen to use their state agency, the directorate that oversees all the boards, and provide them the authority to sign off on licensed applications, so that if a board only meets periodically, their application won't be held up until the next board proceeding. The other thing that we've done that helps both in terms of endorsement and those individuals who cannot necessarily apply for endorsement is giving them the benefit of a temporary license.
Right.
Several states have authorized temporary licenses in all the healthcare professions, all the commercial professions, like I said, just about everything except teaching and attorneys. And this either allows the individual to gather up what they need to obtain an endorsement, or if there are things that are missing in terms of their meeting the competencies required for that state, they'll get a temporary license so that they can get on with obtaining a job while fulfilling those requirements. So in a sense, what we have is three areas. We have endorsement, we have temporary licensure, and then we have expediting those licensure opportunities. Because many of the expediting functions that apply to endorsement also apply to the temporary licensure. Currently, we have 27 states that have implemented either endorsement improvements, temporary licensure improvements, expediting improvements, or a combination thereof.
And this is all in healthcare, Marcus?
I'm sorry, say again?
This is all in the healthcare industry?
This is in the healthcare industries and in the commercial industry.
Okay.
We have had a very, I think, progressive on the Military Homefront website that provided the detail on what each state had agreed to, but unfortunately that did not port over when they moved all that content over to Military OneSource.
Oh.
Getting that rectified very quickly so that spouses will be able to go to Military OneSource and find a map that they can click on and then get the specifics for each state in terms of what they have done and how it's changed the licensure process for a spouse entering that state.
And Marcus, it's up right now on USA for Military Families, right?
What we have, because we're in the middle of a transition on that website as well, what we have is information that provides basically what states have done
right.
To change either endorsement or temporary licensure or expediting, but it doesn't give the level of detail that we had on the Military OneSource website that will be porting over to Military OneSource. I meant to say Military Homefront to Military OneSource.
So we'll definitely have to get a link to that site up on Blue Star Networks.
Absolutely.
So what does your office know about the state of sort of education licensure, and what are your plans for that?
It's an area that we've been very interested in, and we've not had much opportunity to make headway. I think we've had 3 states that have approved legislation that expedites teacher licensure. What we have found is that teachers, I think, are a different issue from the standpoint that it's not just licensure, it may be more than that we need to tackle. We've also found that in trying to deal with just the licensure portion of it in the legislature, it's generally overseen by a different committee than oversees the other licensure requirements. it goes to the Education Committee. It's overseen at the state level by the Department of Education rather than the Department of Regulatory Authorities. And so there's a whole lot of different dynamics there that we want to be able to take on, but we need to do it, I think, with a little bit more of a focused effort than what we have had for, I think, the broad efforts that we've undergone for healthcare and commercial occupations. We still see a need to understand more fully what are the problems that teachers are seeing as they're trying to obtain a new job in a different state. And I think that's one of the things that this network will really help us with. Yeah. We have been advocating that there would be such an entity created, and we're just so overjoyed that the Blue Star Networks are now here to take on that effort, because it will really help us in terms of understanding more fully what we need to do to help teachers.
Right.
We also see that it will give an opportunity to teachers to take this issue on even more on their own than I think perhaps some of the other occupations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We've watched the Military Spouse JD Network, which is a network of military spouse attorneys, do just incredible things as an organized group.
Mm-hmm.
Mary Redding Smith and Laura Dempsey have done just a tremendous job in focusing the requirements for that occupation, going to the appropriate organizations at the national level to get their sanctioning, and then to develop a model, a best practice that now states are considering for approval.
I really can't take credit for that one. That's all Mary. But I do like the idea of using the networks and the model like MSJDN both, well, in three ways: to allow spouses to organize and advocate themselves and coalesce around certain issues, but also to inform decision makers and people with more power like yourself to help them find the people who could make the change. And then you can also tap into these networks, because, I mean, you could talk a little bit about this. When you're trying to make a change at a state level, you really need the stories to come alive, right, in order to highlight the issues to these legislatures and policymakers. So the networks can probably help you with that too, right?
Oh, absolutely. We're pretty good at statistics, survey information, official stuff that we can get from defense sources. But those don't necessarily sell in a hearing. What sells in a hearing is a story, particularly if it comes from the individual that's personally impacted. We've seen this in some of the other issues that we've worked, probably most notably the Interstate Compact on educational opportunities for military children. It came alive for legislators when they had an opportunity to talk to family members who personally experienced some of the concerns that were taken on by the Interstate Compact. That is a very valuable tool that we would have available through these networks. And that's what I would advocate for individuals who join the network who are interested in doing something at the state level. Instead of attempting to get to a legislator with a best practice, we will make our network of liaisons available, because they are working with legislators, and that way they can funnel their effort and their interest into something that may already be occurring. It's always a bit difficult when you have a legislator who's already interested in doing something, and then someone approaches another legislator and says, hey, you really need to do this, and then we have competing opportunities, and
Right.
those don't always work out.
Right.
So it's much better to work it as not necessarily as a coalition or as one unified group, but certainly with
Coordinated.
coordination.
Right. It's interesting to me because I think whenever you're trying to introduce, people who introduce a population to people that they don't know much about. I think military spouses are kind of a mystery. People don't know what to think of them they don't know much about what it means to be a military spouse. It always helps so much to have individual stories to make that population come alive for people. And that works on the private sector too. And we're running out of time, so I want to wrap up a little bit. Unless, Marcus, do you have anything else that you wanted to add before I move on to the private sector?
Just one last thing. Even though we've managed to have legislation passed in 27 states, invariably it takes time for these activities to then get to the point of actually changing practice. In some cases, they've put in a date that starts the practice that is maybe a year out. But in each case, it's going to take the state time to change their practices to ensure that they can implement whatever's in that legislation.
Right. Okay. Well, that's important to know because people hear about the law being changed, and then they all of a sudden it's not changed for them yet, right? Well, maybe that's something we can share over the networks too. Make everybody a little more well-informed. Well, that's great. Thank you, Marcus. And what I wanted to do is sort of tie in what you're saying about stories coming alive for legislators with how we can make these stories come alive for employers too. Because the other exciting thing that I see going on with these networks is creating a pool of military spouses in some of the top industries for military spouses and connecting them with leaders in the private sector who are trying to do more for military spouses. We're seeing a lot of exciting things going on. I know your office's Military Spouse Employment Partnership has tens of thousands of jobs for military spouses, and those employers are plugged in. We have 3 million members here at the chambers, at the chamber, and every day we have employers come in and say, I want to hire spouses. Where are the spouses? And it seems to me that we can point to these networks and say, oh, here are some spouses in healthcare. Here are some spouses in education. We have all kinds of people who want to support entrepreneurs at the chamber. It's what chambers do. We can connect the entrepreneurs with their local chambers of commerce. And we can have those networks talk back to us and talk to each other in the same way that they can discuss the challenges of licensing and certification and how to change it. They can also share stories from their employment about what worked for them and what didn't, who they worked for, what somebody might have done that really helped them keep their job when they PCS'd.
Right.
And then we can share that back with employers. And what we're doing this year at Hiring Our Heroes is putting together a council of 15 to 20 employers who we've identified in the last year as being real leaders in military spouse employment, because either they're creating innovative programs for military spouses or they just really want to get their hands dirty and figure this out, figure out a way to keep military spouses in their ranks. And what we would love to do is several times this year have these private sector employers meet with our great nonprofits like Blue Star Families, and there are other members of the Military Spouse Business Alliance. MSJDN is one of them, NMFA, MOA, and also these representatives of these networks. And we can even coalesce some of the best stories from these networks and meet together and create policies for organizations, for employers that work better for military spouses too. And then we can share those back with the networks. And one of the really exciting things I see coming down the pike is maybe even sharing career and job opportunities with those spouses too. So Vivian, I'm very excited to work with you on all of that. Is there anything else either of you wanted to say about the networks?
We're just hoping that anyone watching, if they aren't already signed up, go do it now.
It's so easy. You just like the Facebook page and you're connected to hundreds of other spouses in your profession. It's really very, very easy. An easy way to get you connected to some of the best resources in the country for these professions. I highly encourage everyone to do it. Okay, well, I think we're out of time. So thank you, everybody. And if you have any questions, please contact any of us in our organizations. We're happy to help you, and please join one of these networks. That's the easiest way to find all of us. Thank you.